I think some of the markers of success, for example, being, having your work on the cover of Vogue, I don't think potentially holds as much weight as it would have done 10, 15 years ago. I think a lot of the more like traditional routes and traditional achievements, I guess, in terms of recognition, don't hold as much weight necessarily with the next generation, who are kind of looking for new ways of doing things and have maybe a slightly smaller scale. I don't think people are necessarily looking for the biggest possible name to work for. I think they want to work with people who have the same values as them.
That is Annabel Waterhouse-Biggins, Communications and Special Projects Director at Graduate Fashion Week. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Create Tomorrow podcast. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli, Head of Consumer Forecasting at WGSN. Every 2 weeks, I will take you on a journey to examine how trends are translated into aesthetics and product design. In this episode, Nicola, Annabel, and I uncover what the next generation of fashion talent is telling us about the industry. From the rise of AI to the shifting ambitions of young designers, we explore the ideas, skills, and perspectives that are set to redefine fashion over the next decade. If you want an early look at where fashion is headed, this is an episode you absolutely don't want to miss. Welcome to the Create Tomorrow podcast, both. Can you each tell us who you are, what you do, and a bit about your career journey so far? Nicola, we'll start with you.
Hi, Cassandra. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Nicola Hitchens. I am the Managing Director at Graduate Fashion Foundation. I've been working here for the past 9 years and currently am leading the charity and foundation in the Managing Directing role. And my background also is actually having shown at Graduate Fashion Week myself as a fashion design graduate back in 2009.
Wow. And Annabel, what about you?
So hi, I am Annabel Waterhouse-Biggins. I'm currently the Comms and Special Projects Director at Graduate Fashion Foundation. I actually started my career at Graduate Fashion Foundation 10 or so years ago. And then I left to go to the British Fashion Council, where I was for 5 years or so, heading up all things marketing, brand, creative. And then last year I came back to New York, work on a really special project that we do in collaboration with the PVH Foundation. And then it's now grown into this role. So I've been in this role since September. And it's been really exciting to watch the charity grow.
So for those that don't know, can you actually tell our listeners what role Graduate Fashion Week plays in the industry? I actually attended, I think back in 2012 or 2013 when I studied abroad. So I've been, but I would love if you could tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit about the foundation. We've been around since 1991, and this is actually our 35th anniversary, which is really exciting. We've got lots of new things on show for Graduate Fashion Week. We were originally created by 3 founders to bring together all of the British BA fashion degree courses to showcase in London. Originally back in the 90s, a lot of industry were going out to visit all of the regional universities to see that obviously the new emerging talent, but it was brought together to bring them down to London so industry can see them and scout talent really easily. We've continued to be the leader in the education and employment pipeline since then. Industry attending every year. We're now up to about 20,000 attendees over our 4-day event, and we've been at the Truman Brewery for the past 10 years, showcasing over 3,500 graduates every year. The amazing thing about it, I feel, is that we're not just showcasing design talent. We showcase around 101 different degree courses from our British universities, and that's what we say in about 26 key different disciplines. So everything from fashion marketing, communication and social media, through to journalism, photography, styling, buying, business, and of course the normal design and knitwear that you would come to expect from Graduate Fashion Week.
I think when I was at Graduate Fashion Week, I was sat next to David Gandhi, and I was like really starstruck. I was like 20.
Yeah. We're very lucky as a foundation to have great support from the industry. We have 6 amazing patrons and about 40 ambassadors now who really support the foundation. Some of those include people like James Andrew Rose, Sick Night of Show Studio, the late Vivienne Westwood, and we've got incredible ambassadors from the industry who sit in key areas. So from media to sustainability to design, people such as Nicholas Daly, Richard Quinn, Patrick McDowell, team members from Vogue. So we really are privileged to have the industry back us and be involved with the charity.
When you look at the themes emerging this year, which ones stand out to you in terms of the students' work?
I think that they are actually, it's a continuation of things that we've seen appearing over the last sort of 5 to 10 years or so. There's always menswear is doing really well at the moment. Lots of people are looking at kind of gender neutral collections, but also menswear specifically, but also kind of around concerns that are from the wider world. So things around like climate change, we're seeing a lot of material innovation, a lot of people using recycled materials, waste materials. And then also a lot of people really honouring their family heritage. So looking at their very specific kind of cultural background from around the world and how they can translate that creatively into garments, collections, portfolios. So that's really exciting. But we've seen that emerge over the last few years, and it's definitely something that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
So after that, I definitely say that digital innovation is coming through, and we've been honouring that in the last 2 years with our digital innovation lab at Graduate Fashion Week. Students are using AI, students are creating work in augmented reality, in VR, and this year we've got a big showcase of what they're producing. We're seeing that within their coursework and their portfolio, so it's really exciting to see that coming through and to see how they blend that physical and digital world.
Yeah, we had Matthew Drinkwater on a couple, maybe last year around November, and he's doing amazing things with students and kind of bridging those worlds. So very exciting stuff happening in the digital fashion scene. I want to talk about future talent. So if you were to poll the graduates that are headed off into industry, do you think that they're worried about, their entry level roles given the context of AI in the world of design and creative?
I think definitely. I think the challenge with AI specifically is that it is encouraging businesses to maybe remove some of those internships or entry level roles. And those are really the first step on the ladder for a lot of our graduates. And they kind of need that like in office, in person experience to learn from mentors in places. So that's definitely a challenge. But with every challenge, there is an opportunity as well. We are seeing lots of young creatives kind of set up their own practices and kind of learn by doing, which I think is really exciting to see as well. So whilst, yes, I do think it's a challenge and potentially a source of anxiety for some young people coming out of university, it also does mean there are kind of new roles being created at the same time. So I think you can kind of take it both ways.
How do you think AI is going to reshape the future of fashion at the academic level? I find this conversation really interesting because I am a professor at the college level. I teach trend forecasting, and the students are brilliant, but sometimes they rely very heavily on AI to get started. It's not necessarily a bad thing in today's environment, but it is a new way of thinking, a new way of working, a new way of learning. What role do you think AI has in reshaping fashion academia from your perspective?
I think that's a really good question. We are seeing it across the board, being used across all different courses in different ways. It is being embraced by academics and professors, obviously, I guess at different levels to the work they have to produce. For instance, with fashion marketing students, they can really bring their renders to life, their visuals to life, and it's an easy way to create a project showcasing, for instance, in-store window point of view, merchandising point of view, product really easily. So it's a really great way of showcasing their work. We are seeing a lot of universities actually embedding some of the courses into their work. For instance, with fashion design, a lot of them are using technologies such as Clo 3D or working with companies like CAD for Fashion to help create 3D renders and AI renders of their work in augmented reality and in VR, which helps bring the work to life. Also, in a sustainable way, they can help do pattern cutting and look at the work that they're producing. So there is a really good use of AI across the board, and we're embracing it at Graduate Fashion Week, and I think the universities are, keeping up in that way too.
I think in addition to that, like using AI does also mean that you have to develop other skills. So for example, like critical thinking, being able to look at things like curation and editing, all of those skills become much more vital because you're working with the tool. It won't do all of the work for you. It has to be kind of a collaboration between the creative and the piece of software that they're using. So actually those potentially softer skills such as curation are becoming as like more vital than ever before for people to develop. And is understanding culture, like understanding where work, whether that is from a communications, merchandising, design course, where is that work actually going to fit in culture and is it going to resonate? I think that ultimately AI can help you define what those data sets are and try and understand who your target audience is. But actually knowing whether that is going to go down well and whether it's going to get cut through is something that actually I think humans really need to be tapped into the culture at the same time, which is much more challenging, I think, for a piece of software to understand. And universities kind of address this through ensuring that storytelling in the portfolios is very well laid out, very well understood. It's not about the final product necessarily. It's about how did you develop that? How did you get there? Who were you looking at? Where were your inspirations? So I think that's a key thing that universities are kind of looking at and encouraging in young people.
To add to that, I would say also about heritage craft. Heritage craft itself is a very sought after skill, and there's a lot of courses that are supporting that, from things like textiles and embroidery, beading work, printing, knitwear and wool. It's a big thing that's coming, that is supported and specialised at university. There are brands who still want people who specialise in heritage craft. There's lots of companies, even like the Prince's Foundation, who are looking and giving grants out to heritage craft. So keeping alive skills that the British fashion industry are famous for is really important as well. And I think that's something that definitely AI can't take away from a designer.
Do you think students have become more global in their outlook or more focused on local and personal narratives? I think in a world where information is just at our fingertips at all times, right? Like any answer is at the end of our fingertips. We've been seeing a lot of retailers and trends kind of go hyper local, very niche. Do you think that that's reflected in the designs too that you're seeing from students?
I think so. I think a final major project from a design student is very personal. That's why they're so varied as well. A lot of students, really embrace culture and heritage. They embrace where they're from. They embrace family tradition, and you see that within their project, within their research, within their portfolio. And I think that's something that's really special. It makes their collection unique, and makes them as a designer unique. And I think that's again something that can't be taken away from digital. It keeps it local. We see people embracing the cities they're from, the jobs that their family might have done in the past, and you see that within the work, and you can feel that on the catwalk.
I think that's also something we're really proud of at Graduate Fashion Foundation, because we do have, especially within our UK member universities, we have a lot of regional universities who very much focus on kind of where they're from and craft in their area, from Liverpool, Manchester to Bournemouth to Bath. And these places, and Birmingham, for example, obviously has a very big jewellery quarter. We know that kind of in Leicester, there's a lot of manufacturing. And we do see the students from those places really focused on the area that they're learning in as well. So we're very proud to have a lot of regional universities and to bring those talents to London so that we can celebrate as a whole.
I want to focus on how a lot of these students are going to be entering a very change-oriented industry, right? The fashion industry it's always been a space of change, right? But in the context of AI and an environmental crisis, poly crisis in general, there's just so much change happening. And that will impact how they navigate their early careers. I wanted to ask, what assumptions do you think industry members still make about young creatives that maybe aren't true anymore?
I think that there is a slight misconception around the current generation and Gen Z maybe not having the same work ethic as other generations. I do think that can be quite unfounded. Of course, it's a generalization. We're talking about a huge amount of young people. Everyone's going to be quite different. But I think that assumption isn't always entirely fair, and probably isn't necessarily true in a lot of cases. I think sometimes the challenge will be whether people are able to work around people. Now, of course, we have a lot of hybrid working, which is a fantastic thing in so many ways. But the amount that you learn via osmosis, like being in an office with people, I think is really invaluable. And I think that maybe this generation has slightly suffered from not being around people to learn in that way as often.
I wanted to also ask what success looks like to this generation. Does it look different? Maybe has it looked different in terms of how they approach Graduate Fashion Week to the generations of the past, maybe?
Yes, I think that, in the past, with having a really strong British high street, people got snapped up at entry level into lots of brands that, aren't here anymore, sadly. So I think we're seeing a lot of students who are coming through ready to launch into industry as a freelancer, as a contractor, or launching their own business. I think that's a big change that we've seen probably in the last 10 years, that, they're saying there might not be the jobs out there, but I'm going to create a path and cut a pathway for myself. I'm going to be seen and heard. I think that's really exciting. They're learning a lot of skill sets at university about running their own businesses. We've launched our Innovators of Tomorrow showroom event and our accelerator program that we do with alumni, which is really exciting to help support people as they're going into early stages of business. I think that we're seeing lots of more entrepreneurs and young people just ready to set up on their own.
And just to add to that, I think some of the markers of success, for example, being, having a work on the cover of Vogue, I don't think potentially holds as much weight as it would have done 10, 15 years ago. I think a lot of the more like traditional routes and traditional achievements, I guess, in terms of recognition, don't hold as much weight necessarily with the next generation, who are kind of looking for new ways of doing things and have maybe a slightly smaller scale. I don't think people are necessarily looking for the biggest possible name to work for. I think they want to work with people who have the same values as them.
That's so interesting. So if getting on the cover of Vogue with your design is not the ultimate goal, what is the ultimate goal?
I just think there's something more important than recognition necessarily on a global stage by such a big industry. I mean, the fashion industry is actually quite small. And I think that there are lots of people developing their own route. So to kind of echo what Nicola said earlier, the Fashion Accelerator program, which is supported by the VH Foundation and Days, a lot of them are far more excited at having a small digital feature on Dazed Instagram than maybe they are at getting a piece shown at like the National Portrait Gallery, for example. And I think it kind of comes down to what those individual creatives value and see as cool and interesting and quote unquote having made it. And I don't think necessarily they are the same things they would have been 20 years ago.
I also would say that London probably doesn't have the bigger draw, the biggest draw that it used to have for our graduates, maybe going back to the early 2000s. Everyone who is a regional based university or from a major city in the UK really wants to stay there and be working there. It's not all about moving to London anymore. So we are seeing a lot of students or a lot of graduates set up businesses in their city and be successful in their city with their peer group. And that's really exciting. So it's not about necessarily, showing in London, being on the catwalk, being on that cover of Vogue, as you mentioned. It's about regional success, about making it in your city, and speaking to your peers and your community.
Last year on the Fashion Accelerator program, we had a wonderful graduate designer called Jess. She has a brand called JO Studio. And not only does she have her brand, but she's also set up kind of a micro factory in Manchester, which she kind of rents out for short term, like one sewing machine to students and to recent graduates so that they can increase their production and also kind of work in a community. And I think that kind of community building approach is really important to kind of the next generation of talent.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, that their values are really what drives them. It's not fame and success and the most notoriety that you could achieve. It's are they happy? It's are they fulfilled? It's are they surrounded by people in their communities? All of which we've been talking about from a consumer forecasting perspective on what drives Gen Z, how Gen Z behaves. So it's really interesting to see that in real time, in action, as we look at these graduates heading into industry now. What do you think separates graduates who get noticed from those that maybe don't during the week of Graduate Fashion Week?
I think usually it's having something unique to say. A lot, there's over 3,500 portfolios on show at Graduate Fashion Week, and those who have something to offer, something newness, are fixing a problem within the industry, that are bringing something innovative and change. The movers and shakers always get noticed. I think at Graduate Fashion Week, it's the best opportunity for networking and connections. We have so many students on show there. We've got nearly 8,000 people watching our catwalk shows across the week in our huge 500-seater catwalk hall. We've got 2 talk stages. We've got a huge university exhibition. The whole event itself is over 80,000 square feet, and we've got all of our awards and judges on site with our careers quarter too. So making sure you are seen and heard is a big deal at Graduate Fashion Week. Having confidence is a big thing we always encourage. We do a lot of workshops about being confident within yourself, within the work that you've been doing, putting your heart and soul into for the last year to deliver your final major project, but also to be confident in talking about your work when you go into interviews, when you have to pitch yourself for those jobs that are hard to come by at the moment.
I would also add to that as well, just like industry awareness. I think it's very obvious when a member of the industry comes in and they're kind of looking for a new talent. If somebody kind of understands what their business is, knows what's going on in the industry, pays attention to podcasts, reads the news, is paying attention to what's happening outside of their work as well, and where their work fits into the context of the wider industry, I think is always something that helps set people apart, because you appear much more industry ready to step into a really exciting role.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to what you were saying earlier too, about how young people aren't necessarily comfortable maybe bouncing around an office because it's not really how they grew up. These are COVID, probably people that, were in high school during COVID, kids that lost a couple of years in terms of socializing and, learning in that environment. I think if I think about my own career journey, like I went to a fashion school and I interned about 8 times during university, right? Those were probably more valuable to me than any learnings in the classroom, because I was around industry members. I was getting set up for my future. If that doesn't happen anymore? Like if internships are sort of stripped away in the age of AI and we automate those sort of tasks that an intern would have done, the skill set that the students are, holding as they enter industry isn't as robust as probably in the past. So I wanted to ask, what sorts of skills are employers rather asking for from students, graduates, that they might underestimate cultivating now?
I mean, I would say proactivity, because I think even if you maybe don't have as many opportunities to intern in the traditional way, actually reaching out to somebody that you admire or that you've spoken to at Graduate Fashion Week and say, can I just shadow you for a couple of days? Can I just, maybe like pick your brains and have an hour meeting? I think if you're proactive and you can look at things in a different way and be very much solutions focused, I think that is a really invaluable skill that goes across the board, no matter what level of your career that you're at.
Yeah. And what discipline or role in fashion do you think will grow the most over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think we're seeing a huge rise, especially from the course offering in like digital marketing, comms, social promo. So that kind of skill set where they walk away from a degree knowing social media, marketing, point of sale, PR, communications, how to style, how to do a great shoot, and how to use that imagery beautifully. I think we're seeing those roles obviously play a huge part in a brand. Every brand has a team who is doing that for them and delivering that content for them. We're seeing a huge increase in those type of courses being created at universities and an uptake of students onto those courses too. So I feel that area is a great skill set to learn, and actually a lot of the Gen Z students will have that skill set naturally as well from their own social media, from again growing up in kind of COVID GCSE age through to university. They've got a finger on the pulse with that technology. So I think that space is a great skill set to have.
Also, just to add to that, I also think like data analysis, because that is relevant across kind of buying, it's relevant for localization. I think understanding large sets of data, seeing trends, understanding how that fits into a wider culture is really important. And I think data analysis is important for merchandising, buying, communications across fashion. And in a more globalized world, localization is incredibly valuable and is what's going to get you more sales and more cut through. So I think analysis will become, it is already quite important, but I think it will become even more so.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's totally the future. It's everything. I spend my day analyzing data all day long. So if that is a skill set you can learn now, definitely do it if any young people are listening. What does the future of fashion look like if we jump ahead to, 2036, 10 years from now?
I think the continuation of sustainability and circularity being a major issue. Obviously, we've got lots of new laws coming in with product passports. I think universities, we're already seeing it taught as part of the curriculum. We even do a project ourselves with Zalando called the Circularity Masterclass, where we're teaching second year students all around circularity and how to design product that is fully circular, that we're hoping they can take on into the industry and into their final major projects. So I think that's not going anywhere. We need to continue to change the output of the fashion industry, and I think that a lot of our students are doing that day to day anyway. I think from what we probably traditionally saw as like a sustainable fashion collection isn't that at all anymore. A normal collection that we're seeing on the catwalk can have major sustainable and circular products and elements to it, and I think that's just going to continue as a whole. We're seeing brand new degree courses being created at major universities as well, all around sustainable design. So I think it's just going to become a huge part of the academia, the courses that they're learning, and actually these new young people are going to take it on into industry and hopefully help change business from the inside.
One thing I don't know where it's going to go, but would be really curious to see where it's going to go is kind of traditional retail. I think like the wholesale model and showrooms, I think is very interesting. Like through the Fashion Accelerator program, we're seeing more and more of these young brands not even entertain the idea of going into a wholesale model, and they are just going D2C. So I think a lot of people are curating really exciting experiences in concept stores and doing pop-ups and things like that. So I'll be interested to see where the kind of retail experience goes in the next kind of 10 to 20 years.
Thank you. And as always, I ask every single guest who comes on the Create Tomorrow podcast, who is someone that's creating a new version of tomorrow that you find deeply inspiring? This could be a person that's famous or in your own life. It could be a brand. So Nicola, no pressure, but we're going to start with you. Who is your pick?
I have picked actually one of our fantastic alumni from our COVID year, 2020, Joy Julius, who won our Face Prize. She is fantastic, an absolutely amazing designer. Her collection, in her own name, Joy Julius, is a kind of a merge between her heritage in Lego and London. It's a beautiful collection, and she's worked really hard on creating beautiful menswear and gender neutral collections. We've worked with her on showcases at the V&A. She's also joining us as a judge this year back at Graduate Fashion Week now on our Culture and Heritage Award. And I think she's a real mover and shaker in the industry. She's been featured on Vogue International. She was picked up for an MA scholarship with the BFC. So she's doing really, really well. And I think that we're going to see big things from her in the future.
Amazing. And Annabel, what about you?
I am actually also going to choose one of our alumni, and so Aurélie Fontaine, who won in 2018. She was nominated for 6 awards, I believe, and won the Catwalk Textiles Award. She grew her own fabric in 2018. It was amazing. And since then, she's done a lot around kind of regenerative principles and biophilic design. I think that has applications within fashion that could be huge, but also beyond the fashion industry. And so she is doing some pretty amazing things, and I think building a future we'll all want to be a part of.
Thank you to my guest, Nicola Hitchens, Graduate Fashion Foundation Managing Director, and Annabel Waterhouse-Biggins, Communications and Special Projects Director at Graduate Fashion Week. If you're a WGSN subscriber, look out for more trends at WGSN.com. And if you're not a subscriber, please come and discover our services. We'll be back with our next episode soon. In the meantime, you can catch the CEO of WGSN, Carla Buzashi, next week on our other podcast, Lives of Tomorrow. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast, and see you next time.